The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive bowl, with thousands of alien beings sitting in rows that curved up toward the ceiling. Strange lights flickered from crystal beings, while insect-like creatures clicked there. Jaws and floating gas clouds pulsed with different colors. At the center of it all stood a single human. Ambassador Jiwoo Park adjusted his dark blue uniform and looked up at the sea of alien faces staring down at him. Behind him stood Admiral Hyun-sik Choi in his military dress uniform, and Dr. So-young Kim with her scientific advisor badge gleaming under the artificial lights. They were the only humans in a room filled with beings from across the galaxy. Jiwoo had been Earth's voice to the galaxy for 5 years now. He had learned their languages, studied their cultures, and tried his best to make friends with species that looked like nightmares from old Earth movies. Today would be different, though. Today he carried a message that no one wanted to deliver. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Jiwoo began, his voice carrying clearly through the chambers. Sound system, I come before you today not as a beggar, but as a friend offering one final warning. A sound like grinding metal came from the Vextar section. These beings looked like giant praying mantises, but with armor plating and too many eyes. Their leader, whose name humans could not pronounce, spoke through a translator device. Warning: Little human, you control 12 star systems. We control the galaxy. What could you possibly warn us about? Laughter echoed through the chamber. The Zephyrians, who looked like living crystal formations, made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Even the blob-like Corvin beings pulsed with colors that their translators said meant amusement. Jiwoo felt Admiral Choi shift behind him. The Admiral's hand moved slightly toward his sidearm, not in threat but in the nervous habit of a soldier who had seen too much combat. Dr. Kim remained perfectly still, but Jiwoo knew she was recording everything for Earth's military intelligence. For 100 years, Jiwoo continued, humanity has followed the Terran Limitation Accords. We agreed to limit our military to defensive forces only. We agreed to stay within our assigned territory. We agreed to ask permission before colonizing new worlds. And we have been generous to allow this, spoke the collective voice of the hegemony of worlds. This group of species shared a single consciousness that spoke as one. Perhaps too generous. Jiwoo nodded slowly. Yes, you have been generous, and we have been grateful. But gratitude has its limits. The hall grew quieter. Some of the alien delegates leaned forward in their seats. Others began whispering to each other in languages that sounded like music, static, or dying animals. 3 days ago, Jiwoo said, the Vextar Empire attacked our mining station at Kepler 438. 47 humans died. When we asked for justice, you told us that humans should not have been mining in disputed territory. The Vextar leader clicked his mandibles. That system belongs to the Empire. Humans had no right to be there. Last month, Jiwoo continued, ignoring the interruption, Corvin slavers captured an entire human colony ship, 3,000 men, women, and children. When we demanded their return, the Corvin Empire claimed they were processing refugees. A large purple blob in the Corvin section pulsed with angry red colors. Those humans entered Corvin space illegally. They are being dealt with according to our laws. Jiwoo's jaw tightened. Behind him, Admiral Choi's breathing became slightly faster. Dr. Kim made a small note on her electronic pad. 6 months ago, Jiwoo said, his voice growing harder, the Zephyrian Confederation decided that Earth itself was too strategically valuable to remain under human control. You demanded that we turn over our homeworld to a joint galactic government. The crystal beings chimed with what sounded like laughter. Earth sits at the center of several important trade routes. It is illogical for one primitive species to control such a valuable location. The word primitive echoed through the chamber. More laughter followed. Some of the smaller alien species, who were usually quiet during council sessions, began making their own comments about human weakness and stupidity. Jiwoo waited for the noise to die down. When it did, his next words cut through the silence, like a knife. We are not primitive. The laughter stopped. For 100 years we have held back. We have limited ourselves. We have played by your rules, followed your laws, and accepted your insults. We did this because we hoped to find peace among the stars. We did this because we believed that intelligent beings could work together. Admiral Choi stepped forward, slightly. His presence seemed to fill more space than his body should have. Several alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. We have been patient, Jiwoo continued. We have been reasonable. We have been peaceful. But patience has limits. Reason has boundaries. And peace requires respect from both sides. The Vextar leaders, many eyes focused on the human ambassador. Are you threatening the council, little human? Jiwoo shook his head. I'm not threatening anyone. I am warning you. There is a difference, and I pray you learn to understand it before it is too late. Dr. Kim touched a small device on her wrist. Somewhere far away, on a blue world orbiting a yellow star, computers received her signal and began processing orders that had been prepared for 50 years. The Terran Limitation Accords were signed in good faith, Jiwoo said. We agreed to limit our military capabilities because you feared what might happen if we did not. You were right to fear, but wrong about why. The hall had become completely silent now. Even the background hum of the station's life support system seemed louder than usual. You thought we would become conquerors like you. You thought we would build massive fleets and crush our enemies like you do. You thought we were just another species that would grab power and use it to hurt others. Jiwoo's voice grew softer, but somehow more dangerous. You were wrong. We are not like you. We are worse. Confused muttering filled the chamber. Several translators seemed to malfunction, producing static instead of words. When you conquer a world, you kill the soldiers and enslave the population. When you want something, you take it by force. When someone offends you, you destroy them. This is how children fight. Admiral Choi smiled slightly. It was not a pleasant expression. Humans do not fight like children, Jiwoo continued. When we fight, we do not just defeat our enemies. We make it impossible for them to fight again, ever. We do not just win battles. We end wars. The hegemony of worlds spoke with what sounded like concern. You speak of genocide, human. The Council does not permit such actions. No, Jiwoo replied. Genocide is what you do. Genocide is stupid and wasteful. We do not kill populations. We make them irrelevant. Dr. Kim made another note. On Earth, massive factories buried deep underground hummed with increased activity. Machines that had been waiting in standby mode for decades began to wake up. The Terran Limitation Accords end today, Jiwoo announced. We gave you 100 years to prove that the galaxy could govern itself with wisdom and justice. You have failed. The Vextar leader rose from his seat, his 6 arms spreading wide in a threat display. The Vextar Empire has ruled this galaxy. For 3,000 years, human. We will not be lectured by mammals who only learned to fly between stars yesterday. 3,000 years, Jiwoo repeated. And in all that time, what have you built? What have you created? What have you given to the galaxy except fear and death? He gestured to the council chamber around them. This station, the greatest achievement of galactic civilization, is barely more advanced than technology Earth developed 2 centuries ago. Your fastest ships take months to cross the galaxy. Your most powerful weapons can barely crack a planet's surface. Your greatest minds still think that problems can only be solved with violence. Admiral Choi stepped forward and whispered something in Jiwoo's ear. The ambassador nodded. I have just been informed that our request to evacuate human populations from contested territories has been denied. The Council has decided that humans have no special rights and must accept galactic justice. Jiwoo looked up at the thousands of alien faces staring down at him. Many showed confusion. Some showed anger. A few showed what might have been fear. Very well, he said quietly. You have made your choice. Now you will live with the consequences. Dr. Kim touched her wrist device again. This time, the signal traveled not just to Earth, but to 12 human worlds scattered across their small corner of the galaxy. On each world, buried facilities that did not appear on any official records began receiving activation codes. The Terran Federation withdraws. From the Galactic Council, Jiwoo announced. The Terran Limitation Accords are hereby declared null and void. As of this moment, humanity is no longer bound by galactic law, galactic treaties, or galactic authority. The hall erupted in chaos. Aliens began shouting in dozens of languages. Security forces moved toward the human delegation. Several species began demanding immediate military action against Earth. Through it all, Jiwoo stood calmly at the center of the storm. When the noise finally died down enough for him to be heard, he spoke one final time. "You have been warned," he said. "What happens next is your choice. Choose wisely." The human delegation walked out of the council chamber without looking back. Behind them, the greatest gathering of intelligent species in the galaxy's history descended into. 3 weeks had passed since the human delegation walked out of the Galactic Council. 3 weeks of angry debates, military preparations, and confident declarations from alien leaders about putting the upstart humans in their place. 3 weeks for Earth to prepare for what was coming. Captain Minho Sun stood on the bridge of the UES Incheon, watching the tactical display show 30 Vextar warships approaching the human colony of New Busan. The colony sat on a world the locals had, named Hope, because it represented humanity's hope for a peaceful future among the stars. Today that hope would be tested. The Incheon looked like every other human frigate in the official fleet records. 300 meters long, armed with conventional weapons, powered by standard fusion reactors. On paper, it was no match for even one Vextar destroyer, let alone an entire battle fleet. Paper, Minho thought, could be very misleading. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Yunji Yu from the tactical station, "the Vextar fleet is broadcasting a surrender demand. They want the colonists to prepare for relocation to labor camps." Minho nodded calmly. Around the bridge, his crew worked with the quiet efficiency of professionals who had trained for this moment their entire careers. None of them showed fear, despite being outnumbered 30-1. "Open a channel to the colony," Minho ordered. "Tell them to stay indoors and away from windows. This might get bright." On the planet below, 40,000 human colonists hurried into reinforced shelters that had been built for exactly this situation. They had been told that someday, other species might come to hurt them. They had been told that when that day came, Earth would protect them. Today they would learn that Earth kept its promises. The Vextar flagship, a massive dreadnought called Deathbringer in their language, moved to the front of their formation. Its captain, a veteran of hundreds of conquests, opened a communication channel. "Human ship," came the translated voice. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and we will make your deaths quick." Minho smiled slightly. "Vextar fleet. This is Captain Minho Sun of the United Earth ship Incheon. I am authorized to inform you that you are in violation of human space. You have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we will remove you." The sound that came through the speakers was the Vextar equivalent of laughter. It sounded like breaking glass mixed with screaming metal. "One small ship against our entire fleet?" The alien captain replied. "Your species' arrogance will be your downfall." 20 seconds, Minho said calmly. On the tactical display, the Vextar ships spread out into their traditional attack formation. Their weapons powered up, energy readings climbing toward firing levels. 30 massive warships, prepared to turn the tiny human frigate into cosmic dust. 10 seconds, Minho announced. Lieutenant Yu looked up from her console. "Sir, their flagship is in optimal position. Single shot will demonstrate our point clearly." 5 seconds. The Vextar dreadnought's main guns began to glow with deadly energy. "Time's up," Minho said quietly. "Fire." What happened next would be talked about in military academies for the next 1,000 years. The Incheon's main weapon did not look like much. There was no massive energy beam, no cloud of missiles, no visible sign that anything had been fired, at all. The only indication that something had happened was a slight shimmer in space, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The Vextar flagship simply changed. Where the ship's command section had been, there was now empty space. Not destroyed, not blown apart, not even damaged. Simply gone, as if it had never existed. The rest of the ship remained perfectly intact, but without its bridge, engines, or life support systems. The massive dreadnought, pride of the Vextar fleet, drifted silently through space like a 3-kilometer-long coffin. "What happened?" screamed voices from the other Vextar ships. "What did you do?" How is this possible? Minho activated the fleet-wide communication channel. The command section of your flagship has been relocated to a position approximately 3 meters to the left of where it used to be. The crew are unharmed but currently enjoying a very close view of the vacuum of space. He paused to let that information sink in. Your sensors cannot detect our weapons because they operate on principles your science has not yet discovered. Your shields cannot stop them because they do not work the way you think weapons work. Your tactics are useless because you are fighting with stone tools against technology you cannot understand. The Vextar fleet began to scatter, their careful formation dissolving into panic. Ships fled in all directions, desperate to escape. Whatever impossible weapon had just casually erased part of their flagship. This is your only warning, Minho continued. Leave human space immediately, or we will demonstrate more of our capabilities. Next time we might not be so merciful. The alien fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed so quickly that several ships forgot to calculate safe distances. 2 destroyers nearly collided in their haste to escape. As the tactical display cleared of enemy contacts, Lieutenant Yu allowed herself a small smile. Sir, message from Earth Command. Project Prometheus is fully active. All hidden assets are coming online. Minho nodded. Around the galaxy, on worlds that aliens thought were nothing more than mining colonies or research stations, humanity's true military strength was awakening from decades of careful concealment. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, Chief Engineer Boram Kang stood in a control room buried 5 kilometers beneath the surface. Around her, displays showed the activation of shipyards that had been disguised as ice mining operations for 30 years. The yards were vast, carved from solid rock and hidden beneath layers of ice and metal that looked like industrial facilities. To any alien surveillance. Begin Phase 2. Release, Boram ordered. Start with the escorts, then the cruisers. Save the dreadnoughts for Phase 3. The floor began to vibrate as massive machinery came to life. Overhead, what appeared to be an ice processing plant began to split apart, revealing the first of Earth's hidden fleet. The ship that emerged defied every law of physics that galactic science thought it understood. The UES Taiguchi was more than just a warship. It was a mobile fortress, a flying city, a demonstration of what human engineering could accomplish when it was not limited by alien treaty restrictions. Captain Wu Jin, Lim took command of the vessel from a bridge that was larger than most alien space stations. Around him, screens showed tactical information processed by quantum computers that could calculate 1 million battle scenarios in the time it took most organic brains to form a single thought. Sir, reported his navigation officer. All systems are green. The dimensional fold drive is ready for first operational test. Wu Jin smiled. The aliens thought that faster-than-light travel was limited by the laws of physics they understood. They were about to learn that humans had discovered laws that alien science had not even imagined. Set course for the Corvin home system, Wu Jin ordered. It's time to discuss the return of our people. The Taiguchi disappeared from normal space without any of the energy signatures that usually marked an FTL jump. One moment it was there, the next it was simply somewhere else entirely. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Sujin Park watched displays showing the deployment of humanity's true fleet. Ships that had been hidden for decades were emerging from concealment. Space stations that had pretended to be research facilities were revealing weapon systems that could crack moons. Mining operations were transforming into military bases. Ma'am, reported her aide, a young officer named Jun Seo Kim. We're receiving surrender requests from 17 alien governments. They're asking for immediate peace negotiations. Sujin shook her head. Too late for that. They had their chance for peace. Now they get to learn about consequences. She activated her command console and sent a message that would be received by every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy. This is Admiral Park to all Terran forces. Project Prometheus is now fully active. Rules of engagement are simple. Protect human lives and property by any means necessary. Show mercy to those who surrender quickly. Show none to those who threaten our people. The message was heard by captains commanding ships that aliens had never imagined. by soldiers carrying weapons that made galactic military technology look like toys, by scientists whose discoveries had rewritten the basic laws of the universe. For 50 years, humanity had pretended to be weak. For 50 years, they had allowed themselves to be bullied, threatened, and dismissed by species that thought superior numbers meant superior strength. Now the pretending was over. Captain Minho's son, still in orbit around New Busan, received new orders from Earth Command. He was to proceed to the Zephyrian Confederation and deliver a simple message: return the human worlds you claimed, or face the consequences. As the Incheon prepared to jump to its next destination, Minho looked out at the stars and wondered how long it would take the galaxy to understand the new reality. Humanity had tried to be peaceful neighbors. When that failed, they had tried to be patient teachers. When that failed too, they had tried to be reasonable diplomats. Now they were going to be something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that was both powerful enough to enforce its will and civilized enough to use that power responsibly. The five aliens were about to learn the difference between conquest and justice, and The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called after reports started flooding in from across known space. Reports that made no sense. Reports that suggested the impossible had become routine. Human ships were appearing everywhere, at once. Not the small, limited fleet that the galaxy knew about, but massive vessels that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics. Ships that traveled between star systems in minutes instead of weeks. Ships that appeared and disappeared without using any detectable form of faster-than-light drive. In the Great Council chamber on Nexus Prime, alien delegates spoke in frightened whispers while they waited for their leaders to arrive. The Vextar, who had always been among the most arrogant species in the galaxy, sat in stunned silence. Their fleet had fled from a single human frigate. The shame was unbearable. High Counselor Threk of the Corvan Empire arrived first, his massive purple body pulsing with nervous colors. Behind him came the crystal formations that represented the Zephyrian Confederation, their normally bright lights dimmed with what might have been worry. The collective consciousness of the hegemony of worlds entered last, their shared thoughts clearly agitated. "Report," Threk demanded. "How many human ships have been detected?" The Council's intelligence chief, a spider-like being from a minor species, consulted his datapad with shaking appendages. "Honorable delegates, we have confirmed sightings of human vessels in over 300 systems simultaneously." Silence filled the chamber. "That's impossible," declared the Zephyrian speaker. "Our intelligence reports showed that humans possessed fewer than 200 ships total." "Our intelligence was wrong," the spider being replied. "Very, very wrong." As, if summoned by their words, space outside the station began to shimmer. The first human ship appeared without warning, materializing in the system's outer orbit like a mountain appearing in a lake. Then another, then 10 more. Admiral Sujin Park stood on the bridge of the UES Seoul, watching the alien space station grow larger on her main screen. Around her, displays showed the positions of 96 human warships that had just arrived using dimensional fold drive technology. Ships that had traveled nearly 800 light-years in less than 6 minutes. "Ma'am," reported Communications Officer Jun Seo Kim, "we're receiving desperate hail requests from the station. The Galactic Council wants to talk." Sujin smiled coldly. She was Ambassador Jiwoo Park's younger sister, and she had listened to his reports about galactic arrogance for 5 long years. Today, that arrogance would finally meet its match. "Tell them we'll talk when they're ready to listen properly," she replied. "Until then, they can enjoy the view." The view was spectacular and terrifying. The human fleet surrounded Nexus Prime, like a metal constellation, each ship representing technology that was decades ahead of anything in the galactic database. The smallest vessels could have conquered entire star systems. The largest defied easy description. On the station, panic was setting in. Alien military commanders tried desperately to coordinate a defense, but their weapons couldn't even target the human ships properly. The vessels seemed to exist in normal space and somewhere else at the same time, making accurate sensor readings impossible. "How are they doing this?" demanded the hegemony of worlds. "Our science says that such technology, cannot exist. The Council's chief scientist, a being that looked like a floating brain in a glass jar, pulsed with confused thoughts. Honored collective, they appear to be using some form of dimensional manipulation. Our understanding suggests this should require the energy output of an entire star system. Then how? Threk roared, his color shifting to angry orange. Perhaps, the brain creature suggested nervously, our understanding is incomplete. In her laboratory on Earth, Dr. Yeonsu Jang was monitoring the galactic response to humanity's revelation. She had spent 30 years developing the dimensional fold drive, working from principles that she had discovered in the abandoned laboratories of a species that had vanished from the galaxy millions of years ago. The aliens thought they were the first to achieve interstellar civilization. They were wrong about that, just as they had been wrong about so many other things. Dr. Jang called her assistant, a young physicist named Changmin Lee. We're receiving data from all active ships. The fold drive is performing perfectly. No alien sensors can track our movements. Yeonsu nodded. The technology worked by stepping partially outside of normal spacetime, allowing ships to move through dimensions that three-dimensional beings couldn't even perceive. It was like watching a flat drawing suddenly gain depth and move through the third dimension. What about the weapons systems? She asked. All quantum displacement weapons are functioning normally. The test shot at the Vextar flagship was detected by their sensors as a minor gravitational anomaly. They have no idea how we moved part of their ship to a different location. Back in the Nexus Prime system, the Galactic Council was learning just how outmatched they really were. The Zephyrian Confederation had tried to scan the human fleet using their most advanced sensor technology. The results were impossible to interpret. The human ships register as being present, absent, and in multiple locations simultaneously, reported their science officer. Our computers keep crashing when they try to process the data. Admiral Soo-Jin Park decided it was time to make an impression. She activated her ship's communication system and broadcast on all frequencies used by galactic civilization. Attention, Galactic Council. This is Admiral Soo-Jin Park of the Terran Defense Force. You ignored our warnings. You threatened our people. You forced us to reveal capabilities that we would have preferred to keep hidden. Her words were simultaneously translated into hundreds of languages by AI systems that had cracked every galactic encryption and communication protocol decades ago. Look around you, she continued. Count our ships. Scan our technology. Try to understand what you are seeing. The aliens did try to understand. Their most powerful sensors strained to analyze the human vessels. Military computers worked overtime trying to calculate weapon strengths and defensive capabilities. Scientists ran simulation after simulation, trying to figure out how any of it was possible. All of their efforts failed. Your science tells you that we shouldn't exist, Admiral Park continued. Your military doctrine says that our ships can't work. Your politicians believe that superior numbers always win. On the station, delegates huddled together in species groups whispering frantically about impossible things. You are about to learn that reality doesn't care what you believe. Captain Youngmi Song materialized her ship, the UES Gwangju, directly above the Vextar homeworld. The planet's defense grid tried to target her vessel, but their weapons couldn't lock onto something that existed in 4 dimensions, while they could only see 3. Vextar Military Command, she broadcast. This is Captain Song of the Terran Defense Force. You have 72 hours to return all human prisoners and withdraw your forces from human territory. The response came quickly, filled with the usual Vextar arrogance. Human, you are one ship against our entire home defense fleet. We have 1,000 vessels protecting this world. Young Mi activated her tactical display, showing the positions of every Vextar military installation in their empire. Each facility was marked with precise targeting coordinates and tagged with the words, Mercy expires in 72 hours. You have 943 ships, she corrected. Your planetary defense grid consists of 827 stations. Your ground-based military installations number in the thousands. I have the exact location, defensive strength, and command structure of every single one. She paused to let that information sink in. And I am not alone. Across the Vextar Empire, human ships began appearing in orbit around every major world. Single vessels, each one demonstrating the same impossible technology, each one broadcasting the same message. Surrender now, or face consequences that your people have never imagined. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was beginning to understand the true scope of their miscalculation. Intelligence reports were flooding in from every corner of known space. Human forces were active in systems that should have taken months to reach, ships that appeared to be in multiple places at once, weapons that violated the basic laws of physics. How many ships do they actually have? Threk asked desperately. Intelligence Chief's appendages were shaking as he consulted his rapidly updating datapad. Honored Delegate, we have confirmed sightings of at least 2,000 vessels, but the numbers keep changing. Some ships appear to be in dozens of locations simultaneously. That's because you're trying to track four-dimensional objects using three-dimensional sensors, came a new voice. Every head in the council chamber turned toward the source. In the center of the chamber, where no one had been standing moments before, a human figure appeared. Not transported by any visible technology, but simply stepping into existence as if walking through an invisible door. Intelligence Director Seong-Ho Park looked around at the assembled delegates with the calm confidence of someone who held all the winning cards. He wore a simple black uniform with no decorations except a small Earth insignia on his collar. Honored delegates, he said using the same respectful tone that Ambassador Jiwoo had employed weeks earlier. Earth is prepared to discuss. The 24 hours passed quickly. Too quickly for the panicked governments trying to understand what they were facing. Too slowly for the human commanders who had been holding back their full capabilities for half a century. Fleet Admiral Do-Hyun Shin stood on the bridge of the UES Busan, a vessel so massive that it generated its own gravity field just to hold itself together. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of every significant military target in the galaxy. Each display was updated in real time by quantum sensors that could observe events faster than light could travel between star systems. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, a sharp-eyed woman named Hee-Jin Ko. We're receiving responses from the major powers. The Corvan Empire is requesting extended negotiations. The Zephyrian Confederation wants to discuss territorial compromises. The Vextar are, well, they're being Vextar. Do-Hyun nodded. The Vextar response had been predictable. Threats, insults, and promises to fight to the death rather than surrender to inferior mammals. Some species never learned until the lesson was taught with overwhelming force. What about the smaller governments? He asked. 17 minor species have already agreed to our terms completely, Ye-Jin replied. 32 others are asking for clarification on specific points. The rest are either hiding or preparing for war. Do-Hyun studied the tactical display showing the galaxy's military forces. Even combined, they represented less firepower than what humanity had built in secret over the past 50 years. But firepower alone didn't win wars. Fear did. Understanding did. The crushing realization that resistance was not just futile but pointless. Begin Operation Thunderbolt, he ordered. Start with the Corvan slave camps. I want their 3,000 human prisoners freed within the hour. Yes, sir. Shall we send a rescue fleet? Do-Hyun smiled grimly. No, send Captain Jinna Han. Captain. Jinna Han led Squadron 7 through the heart of Corvan space aboard her fighter, the UES Sol 2. Behind her flew 11 other pilots in craft that looked more like works of art than military vehicles. The fighters were small, elegant, and capable of things that made alien physicists weep in frustration. Sol 7 to Squadron, Jinna broadcast. We're approaching the Corvan prison complex. Remember, we're here to free prisoners, not start a war. Minimum force, maximum efficiency. The Corvan military base that held the human captives was considered impregnable. It sat in the middle of a heavily defended system, surrounded by automated defense platforms, patrol fleets, and enough firepower to crack a moon in half. Jinna's squadron bypassed all of it by simply stepping outside normal space. The fighters used quantum phase technology that let them exist partially in other dimensions. To the Corvan defenders, the human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, moving through solid matter as if it wasn't there. Sol 7 to prison complex, Jinnah broadcast as her fighter materialized inside the station's supposedly secure command center. This is Captain Han of the Terran Defense Force. You are holding 3,000 human civilians against their will. Release them immediately. The Corvan commander, a large purple being whose name translated roughly as Deathbringer, stared at the impossible sight of a human fighter floating inside his control room. His security systems hadn't detected any breach. His sensors showed no sign of how the ship had gotten there. This is impossible, he wheezed through his translator. Our shields are designed to stop three-dimensional objects, Jinnah interrupted. We don't fly in just 3 dimensions. Release the prisoners or we'll demonstrate more of our capabilities. Deathbringer began giving orders to his subordinates, but they were all too shocked to respond effectively. While he shouted and threatened, Jinnah's squadron was already at work throughout the facility. Fighters phased through walls and barriers, locating human prisoners and mapping the station's layout. Sol 2 to Sol 7, came another pilot's voice. I've found the detention levels. The humans are alive but in poor condition. The Corvans have been using them for heavy labor. Jinnah's expression hardened. She had read the reports about how the galaxy's major powers treated species they considered inferior. Seeing it in person made her understand why Earth had finally decided to stop being patient. Sol 7 to prison complex, she broadcast again. You have 60 seconds to begin prisoner release procedures, or we will take more direct action. You are 1 squadron against an entire military base, Deathbringer roared. We have 1,000 soldiers, automated defenses, and the protection of the Corvan Imperial Fleet. 50 seconds, Jinnah replied calmly. Around the prison complex, Corvan warships began powering their weapons and moving to attack positions. Ground-based defense systems came online. Thousands of alien soldiers prepared for battle. None of it mattered. Time's up, Jinnah announced. What happened next became required study material in every military academy in the galaxy for the next century. The human fighters didn't attack the Corvan defenses. They simply made them irrelevant. Using precise dimensional manipulation, Squadron 7 relocated every weapon system on the base to a position exactly 1 meter to the left of where it had been installed. The guns were still there, still functional, still loaded with ammunition. They just weren't connected to anything anymore. What did you do? Deathbringer screamed as his status boards showed every weapon in the complex suddenly registering as offline. We moved your weapons slightly, Jinnah explained patiently. They're all still there, just not where they're supposed to be. Would you like us to move something more important, like your life support systems, or perhaps your reactor containment? The alien commander looked at his tactical displays showing defense systems that existed but couldn't be fired, weapons that were present but not attached to their power sources, and realized that he was facing a form of warfare that his people had never imagined. Release the humans, he whispered. 30 minutes later, 3,000 freed prisoners were aboard Terran rescue ships, receiving medical care and being reunited with family members they thought they'd never see again. The Corvan prison complex remained intact and functional, just completely defenseless. Similar demonstrations were taking place across the galaxy. Commander Youngmai Song materialized her ship in orbit around the Vextar homeworld, where the proud insect warriors had been boasting about their readiness to fight humanity to the death. Her vessel, the UES Guangzhou, hung in space like a dark angel, immune to every weapon the planet could fire at it. Vexatar Military Command, she broadcast. Your 72-hour deadline has expired. Since you have chosen to resist rather than comply with our reasonable demands, we will now demonstrate why that was unwise. The response came immediately. Hundreds of ground-based missiles launched toward her ship, followed by energy beams from orbital defense platforms. The firepower directed at the Guangzhou could have vaporized a small moon. All of it passed harmlessly through empty space, where the human ship had been a moment before. Your weapons are designed to fight in 3 dimensions, Young Mi explained, as her ship phased back into normal space. We exist in 4. Observe. On the planet's surface, every major military installation suddenly found itself surrounded by holographic displays showing detailed schematics of their facilities, complete, with the names and locations of every person inside. The displays were accompanied by a simple message: "Your children are in these locations. Surrender now." But the most terrifying demonstration was happening in the Zephyrian Confederation's capital system. The crystal beings had always prided themselves on being the galaxy's most advanced technological civilization. They built computers that could calculate the movement of entire star systems. Their science was supposedly generations ahead of everyone else. Captain Junho Yoon proved them wrong in a single afternoon. His ship, the UES Daegu, appeared inside their most secure research facility, not outside it, not near it, but actually occupying the same space as their quantum computing center. The human vessel existed in perfect harmony with the alien structure, each occupying the same location in different dimensional phases. Zephyrian Science Council, Junho broadcast. "We are currently sharing the same space as your most advanced computer system. Our ship's hull is passing through your quantum processors without affecting them. This should be impossible according to your understanding of physics." The Zephyrian scientists, who had spent centuries believing they were the smartest beings in the galaxy, watched in stunned silence as human technology made mockery of their greatest achievements. "We are not here to destroy your research," Junho continued. "We are here to offer you a choice. Accept that your understanding of the universe is limited, and we will teach you new principles that will advance your science by centuries. Continue to resist and remain ignorant forever." One by one, the major powers of the galaxy began to understand what they were facing. This wasn't just a superior military force. This was a species that had mastered fundamental aspects of reality that the rest of the galaxy didn't even know existed. On Earth, President Haewon Choi addressed the world from the Global Defense Center. Behind her, displays showed the progress of Operation Thunderbolt as human forces systematically demonstrated their superiority to every hostile government in known space. "My fellow humans," she said. 6 months had passed since humanity revealed its true nature to the galaxy. 6 months since the demonstrations that had shattered every assumption about power, technology, and the natural order of civilizations among the stars. The galaxy was quiet now. Not the silence of death, but the peace that comes when children finally stop fighting and start listening to the adults in the room. Ambassador Kyung-Soo Lee floated in zero gravity above the rebuilt Nexus Prime, addressing the reformed Galactic Assembly from a podium that defied conventional physics. The symbolism was deliberate and unmistakable. Humanity no longer bowed to anyone else's rules about how things should work. Around him, delegates from 847 different species listened with the quiet attention of students who had learned that their teacher could make their homework assignments vanish into other dimensions if they misbehaved. "The Terran Accords are not complicated," Kyung-Soo explained, his words simultaneously translated by quantum AI systems that the aliens were still trying to understand. "Slavery ends, genocide ends, wars of conquest end, piracy ends. These are not requests. These are not suggestions. These are the new rules of galactic civilization." In the audience, the former High Counselor Threk of the Corvan Empire shifted uncomfortably. His people had released their human prisoners within hours of Captain Jina Han's demonstration. They had also discovered that 3,000 years of treating other species as property had made them very unpopular with their former victims. "What about our traditional territorial rights?" asked the Zephyrian representative, their crystal form pulsing with nervous light. Kyung-Soo smiled. It was a patient expression, the kind that teachers used with slow students. "Your traditional rights included the right to strip mine inhabited worlds and relocate entire populations to labor camps. Those traditions are now extinct." The Zephyrian delegates' light dimmed. Like most of the galaxy's former powers, they were learning that their old ways of doing business had become not just impossible, but ridiculous. "How do you threaten someone who can relocate your weapons into other dimensions?" Admiral Min Jung-yu commanded the Galactic Peacekeeping Force from her flagship, the UES Dokdo, a vessel that served more as a mobile diplomacy platform than a warship. Around her, officers from dozens of different species worked together with an efficiency that would have been impossible under the old system. "Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Jae-hyun Seo, a former Terran Defense Force officer who now coordinated anti-piracy operations across 3 spiral arms. The Outer Rim pirates have sent another surrender request. That makes 47 groups that have given up operations this month. Min Jung nodded. Piracy had become a very unpopular career choice once word spread that human peacekeeping ships could appear anywhere without warning and relocate entire criminal fleets to empty systems with notes explaining why stealing was wrong. "What's the status on the former Vextar territories?" she asked. "Surprisingly peaceful," Jae-hyun replied. "Turns out that when you remove the Vextar Empire's ability to threaten everyone, their former victims are quite good at governing themselves. We've had requests from 17 species asking for help setting up democratic governments. The transformation had been remarkable. The Vextar, once the most feared military force in the galaxy, had discovered that their entire society had been built on the ability to frighten other species into submission. When that ability disappeared, they found themselves faced with the choice of learning to cooperate or becoming irrelevant. Most had chosen cooperation. On Earth, Director Hyo Jin Cho supervised the Galactic Integration Project from the New Geneva headquarters. Her job was perhaps the most challenging in human space, teaching an entire galaxy of former enemies how to live together peacefully. "The preliminary reports are encouraging," she told her assistant, Dr. Moon-soo Park, as they reviewed integration statistics. "Trade volume is up 400%. Scientific collaboration has increased by over 1,000%. Military spending galaxy-wide has dropped to its lowest level in recorded history." Moon-soo looked up from his datapad. "What about resistance movements? Are we still getting reports of species trying to rebuild their old military capabilities?" Hyojin smiled. "2 groups tried to build secret weapons programs last month. We relocated their research facilities to the middle of their capital cities with big signs explaining what they had been doing. The embarrassment was so complete that both governments collapsed within a week. The beauty of humanity's approach to galactic peacekeeping was that it required almost no violence. When you could make weapons simply stop working, make secret facilities appear in public places, and make hostile fleets find themselves sitting in empty space, billions of miles from anywhere, traditional military resistance became pointless. President Tsai Byul-kim often reflected on the strange turn of events that had made humanity the galaxy's reluctant rulers. From her office in Seoul, she could see the United Earth Space Command headquarters where Admiral Do-hyun Shin coordinated the most powerful military force in galactic history, a force that spent most of its time delivering medical supplies and building infrastructure. The monthly reports from the colony worlds are in, Secretary of Galactic Affairs Dong-wook Han told her during their weekly briefing. The former Corvan slave colonies are showing remarkable progress. Literacy rates are up, infant mortality is down, and they've established functioning governments on 43 worlds. Sabiel nodded. What about the former Vextar conquest zones? Even better. It turns out that most of the species the Vextar conquered were quite advanced before being subjugated. Give them basic freedom, and they rebuild their civilizations within months. We've had requests from over 100 worlds asking to join the Terran Federation. That was the most surprising development of all. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were emerging from oppression to discover that their liberators were not conquerors themselves, but protectors who actually meant what they said about self-determination and freedom. Captain Jun Ho-yoon stood on the bridge of the UES Explorer, humanity's first intergalactic vessel, as it prepared for a journey that would take them beyond the edge of known space. His mission was elegantly simple: find out what else was out there and make sure it understood the same lesson the galaxy had learned. "Sir," reported his navigation officer, Lieutenant In-ho Kwan, "all systems are green. The enhanced dimensional full drive is ready for the first intergalactic jump." Junho smiled. The galaxy they were leaving behind was finally at peace, but the universe was vast and full of unknowns. If there were other civilizations out there, other galactic communities, struggling with the same problems of war and oppression, then maybe humanity could help them too. "Take us out," he ordered. "Let's go see what's on the other side of forever." Back on Earth, in a small apartment in Tokyo, former Ambassador Ji-woo Park sat with his family, reading bedtime stories to his young daughter. The man who had delivered humanity's final warning to the galaxy was now a civilian again, content to let others handle the complexities of governing a peaceful universe. His daughter, 5-year-old So-Jin, looked up at him with curious eyes. "Papa, why do all your stories have monsters that turn out to be nice?" Jiwoo smiled and tucked her into bed. "Because, sweetheart, sometimes the scariest-looking people are really the ones trying to protect you, and sometimes the nicest-looking people are the ones you need protection from." "But how do you tell the difference?" "You watch what they do when they think no one is looking," he replied. "Good people try to help others even when they don't have to. Bad people hurt others even when they don't gain anything from it." So-Jin nodded seriously as if filing away important information. "Are we the good people, Papa?" Jiwoo thought about the galaxy his species had reluctantly taken charge of. A galaxy where former slaves were learning to read, where conquered species were rebuilding their civilizations, where the strong finally protected the weak instead of preying on them. "I think we're trying to be," he said, "and sometimes that's enough." Across the galaxy, on worlds that had known only fear and oppression for centuries, children of 100 different species were going to sleep safely for the first time in their lives. Parents who had never dared to hope for better futures were making plans for their children's education. Scientists who had spent their careers developing weapons were turning their talents toward medicine and exploration. The galaxy had learned to speak the language of cooperation instead of conquest. Trade routes that had been controlled by pirates were now protected by peacekeeping forces that appeared like guardian angels whenever trouble started. Research facilities that had once developed new forms of torture were now working on cures for diseases that had plagued their species for millennia. It hadn't been easy. Some species had tested the new order repeatedly, trying to find ways around humanity's impossible technology. They had learned that every attempt to return to the old ways of violence and oppression met with swift, precise, and utterly humiliating correction. The hegemony of worlds had tried to secretly rebuild their collective consciousness network for military purposes. They woke up one morning to find their entire communication system playing children's educational programs about sharing and cooperation